Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Why Rear Admiral, if you have to ask? You must be new here. World of Warships is finally in open beta test. Absolutely anybody can download and play World of Warships, and of course absolutely anybody is downloading and playing World of Warships. And as expected, the standard of gameplay has nosedived straight into the toilet, but hey, everybody has to start somewhere. Bit of a good news, bad news situation for me actually, because my router got blown up by a lightning strike 2 days ago. So what have I been doing for the last 2 days? While World of Tanks patch 9.9 is out on the test server, while patch 1.51 has just come out for War Thunder, and while the open beta test has finally set sail on World of Warships. Well, aside from playing an awful lot of Far Cry 4 in offline mode, not an awful lot. I do recommend Far Cry 4, by the way. It's an absolutely amazing game. But this isn't about Far Cry 4. This is about World of Warships open beta. I did get a taste of what things were going to be like during the open beta when I was taking part in the stunningly poorly named public test of World of Warships, which introduced the economy changes and the various different changes to the ships, consumables and all that sort of thing. So I had some idea of what I was missing while my modem was dead. And I was waiting for the engineer to come around and fix it, but come around and fix it he did, so I've had a go, and so this is a little late, but better late than never. World of Warships open beta test with Rear Admiral Jingles. My number one piece of advice is if you are firing torpedoes, never, ever, under any circumstances, fire them ahead of anybody on your own team. My number two piece of advice for new players to World of Warships is stay the hell away from anybody on your team who is armed with any kind of torpedo. Of course, the overwhelming majority of people playing are completely new to the game, so it comes as absolute no surprise whatsoever that guys like this destroyer has absolutely no idea how to use his torpedoes. He's just cut in front of me, which is absolutely fine, and launched a spread of torpedoes, but then he does a hard turn to starboard and gets ready to launch another spread. And 30 seconds later, here they come. Check out the cruiser in the background over there. He's about to do the same to that other friendly cruiser right up front. Any second now you'll see them in the water. And there they are. Awesome. And while I'm busy sinking, some other noob launches another spread of torpedoes, which puts the fear of God right into that friendly cruiser up ahead. Not long afterwards, you see that cruiser in the background. You know what he's going to do, don't you? Any second now. He's going to put more torpedoes in the water, and he's going to come within a hair's breadth. There they go. Been panning the camera around here, trying to get a closer view of the guy who team killed me. That destroyer right there. There it is. Oh no, put the camera back, Jingles. Put it back. Put it back. Put it back. No, that's the guy who launched the torpedoes. And there he is. Yeah, he just saw them coming in time. Unbelievable. So, torpedoes. Remember, there is no such thing as a friendly torpedo. Once you've fired them, they are very, very unfriendly indeed, and they don't care who they sink. So, other than lots and lots and lots of new players who have no idea what they're doing, what else is new in the World of Warships open beta test? Well, a couple of things are missing. Some of you may have noticed that the Atlanta is missing from the American tech tree. And the brand new Japanese Tier 7 cruiser, the Atago, is also missing. The Atago was the replacement for the Kitakami, the Tier 8 Japanese 40 torpedo tube armed cruiser, which has been completely removed from the game. Don't worry, the Atlanta and the Atago will be available for purchase at some point in the future, but the developers have removed them from sale within the in-game tech tree because the last thing they want is a whole bunch of noobs driving around in brand new Tier 7 cruisers who have absolutely no idea what they're doing, which I think is a fantastic idea. If you were lucky enough to get in there during the load test prior to the open beta actually going live, you could have bought yourself an Atlanta and or an Atago, and you can still use them. But for the immediate future, they are no longer available for purchase in the game. The other premium ships are. You can still buy a Tier 6 Warspite, you can still buy the Murmansk, you can still buy the Aurora, but you cannot buy the 2 Tier 7 premium cruisers. I'd love to do you a review of this ship. Unfortunately, it's proving slightly problematic because anytime I select my Atago and hit the battle button, I'm dumped into a queue with half a dozen people, all in Tier 7 cruisers, and absolutely nothing else. So hopefully within a week or so, when enough people have reached Tier 7, I'll be able to actually put this thing through its paces and let you know what it's like. But it does look very, very good. So, moving on swiftly, what actually is new about the open beta test? What is in the open beta that was not available in the closed beta? Well, we have things like consumables, and here they are. Consumables include things like your fighter or spotter aircraft, which can be launched from certain cruisers and battleships, things like your smokescreen on your destroyers, your defensive fire ability on your cruisers, your damage repair ability on your battleships. These are all now consumables, and they're available in 2 flavors. You can replenish the consumables for free, and you get the standard edition, or you can choose to spend gold or large amounts of credits in exactly the same way as premium consumables work in World of Tanks. The benefit of the premium consumables is that they have a shorter cooldown, so you can use them more often. Other than that, they're all pretty much exactly the same. One thing that you do not have is premium ammunition. The regular ammunition types are all that you get. There are also some new consumables and some changes to the way that certain of the old consumables work. One of the new consumables, for example, is what's known as hydroacoustic search. This essentially allows you to detect people through smoke screens for a limited period of time, and also improves the range at which you acquire targets such as torpedoes, enemy aircraft, and other enemy ships. Spotter aircraft have had a considerable rework and are now very, very useful, particularly on battleships. Previously, in the closed beta test, all the spotter aircraft did was extend the range at which you would acquire a target. Now, they actually increase the firing range of your main guns. And that's not all they do. Anybody who's familiar with the Artillery Assistant mod for World of Tanks will find themselves right at home here, because this is the view that you get when you have a spotter aircraft airborne and you're zeroing in the main guns of your ship. So not only does your spotter aircraft now extend the range of your main battery guns by 20%, it also gives you a much better view of your target, making it much easier for you to calculate the amount of lead that you need to give to ensure that your shots actually hit the target. I have to admit, I'm not particularly good at using it yet, but it is an interesting new feature, even if I do seem to be having more success just firing and aiming my guns the old-fashioned way. But practice makes perfect, and it definitely does offer advantages. One of the other major features of the open beta test, which marks it as distinct from the closed beta test, is upon reaching player service record level 8, you unlock the ability to use camouflage patterns on your ships. They're accessed via the exterior menu, the same place where you go to decorate your ship with various different signal flags, and they have 2 different uses. The first one, and both of these are consumables by the way, they have to be reapplied to your ship between battles, but the first one reduces your ship's detectability by 3%, so that one's for destroyers. And the second one, and this one's for battleships, reduces the accuracy of all enemy guns firing at you by 4%. The next major change from the closed beta test is to do with crew skills. Your commanding officer's crew skills have been completely reworked. Just to give you one example, situational awareness, which was the help I've been spotted skill, very, very similar to the 6th Sense skill in World of Tanks, for example, used to be a tier 3 skill and would cost you 6 skill points in order to unlock it. 1 skill point at tier 1, 2 at tier 2, and then the 3 at tier 3 for a total of 6 skill points in order to actually unlock situational awareness itself. Well, that is now a tier 1 skill. It can quite literally be the very first skill that you unlock on your ship. A lot of the old skills have been removed and consolidated into one new skill, the Superintendent skill, which basically gives you 1 extra charge on all of your class-specific consumables like smoke screens for destroyers, defensive fire cooldown for cruisers, and so on and so on. And then you have some completely new skills, such as Expert Loader, which reduces the reload time by 30% anytime you change ammunition types in your guns. Then you have Last Stand, which allows you to get at least some movement and steering out of your ship, even if your engines or steering gear have been knocked out as a result of critical damage. Not to be confused with Last Chance, which increases the reload of your guns by 9% when your ship's on less than 20% health. And finally, Preventative Maintenance, which reduces the chance that your modules will be knocked out by critical strikes in the first place by a staggering 34%. And finally, what's probably the biggest difference between the open beta test and the closed beta test is the amount of credits and experience that are required to work your way up through the tiers in World of Warships. You're certainly not going to see what was possible in the closed beta test. If you had absolutely no life whatsoever, it was entirely possible in the closed beta test to go from tier 1 all the way up to tier 10 in the space of about a week. That is just not possible anymore. You can make your way up to tier 4 even with just a couple of hours of casual play, in pretty much the same way that you can do that in World of Tanks, but from tier 5 up. The amount of credits in particular that are required in order to buy the new ships that you unlock has been drastically increased to make it more in line with the kind of progression that you have to go through in World of Tanks. And that just about covers pretty much all of the major differences between what I've already shown you in the closed beta test of World of Warships and what you can expect to see when you log in and start playing the open beta test. And I managed to do that in just under 11 minutes. What am I going to do for the next 10 minutes? I mean, this is a Jingles video. Well, I could show you one of my first games, I suppose. You know, one that didn't suck. As most of them did. But I did have one little game in the good old American Tier 3 St. Louis, which was an absolute corker. Let's see if I can find it for you. Actually, while I'm looking for that one, let's just... this is one of the glorious defeats I was talking about. There's some amazingly fancy steering going on in this match. I'm chasing down a destroyer in my Chikuma. I anticipated that he was going to be launching torpedoes at me, so I took a very tight turn around the side of the island, and his first spread of torpedoes missed me by a country mile. And there we go. Lighten him up with a high explosive. He drops his smoke screen, and I know he's turned around, so there are going to be more torpedoes in the water. Here they come. Time to do the hippie hippie shake. I don't think so, sunshine. Anyway, lose him in the smoke screen, and I just know he's going to be reloading his torpedo tubes and getting ready to put a fresh salvo into me, so any second now. 15 to 20 seconds later, he pops out of the smoke, and look at how close those torpedoes are before I see them, but I know they're coming. It's just... Enemy torpedoes are not a problem. It's the friendly torpedoes that get me every single time. We lost this one, of course. Of course we did. I did really, really well, so naturally we lost. I managed to get that bloody destroyer, though. And, yeah, this was another one of those glorious defeats. Anyway, here's that St. Louis game I was talking about. There are obviously a whole bunch of changes in World of Warships between the closed beta and the open beta, but some things remain constant. The St. Louis, the American Tier 3 cruiser, is still a magnificent bastard of a ship. It is. It's just made out of guns. This thing couldn't be more American if it tried. It's a glorious ship. It was glorious in the closed beta, and it's just as glorious in the open beta. This is one of the ships that I just keep coming back to. I mean, yeah, it's slow. It's not particularly maneuverable, but it's made out of guns, and you know, that makes up for a lot of downsides. So let's just skip ahead to when things actually started happening in this match. First targets pop up. We've got one Tier 4 and one Tier 3 enemy cruiser. They're both Japanese, the Tenryu and the Yubari. The Yubari obviously being the premium Tier 4 Japanese cruiser, which is very, very good at anti-aircraft self-defense. And is also very maneuverable, and it's very fast. It obviously carries torpedoes. The guns are not bad, but they're not great, and they're certainly not as good as the guns on the St. Louis. But enemy destroyer pops up. If you're in the St. Louis and a destroyer is in range, shoot the destroyer. Just pepper him with high explosive. Now, that destroyer, obviously new to the game, you saw him opening up with his anti-aircraft guns at the torpedo bombers that were flying overhead. That gave his position away, and he is now getting pounded by multiple friendly ships, myself included. As a cruiser with lots and lots and lots of guns, St. Louis captains should always prioritise enemy destroyers whenever they're in range, and you have so many guns that you just pepper the area with high explosive, pretty much like this. And even though I can't see him, and he's now out of line of sight. Yep, first blood, first kill to me in the St. Louis. This ship is so good at killing destroyers, it's just not funny. I have, of course, been spotted by the enemy team, and when I say spotted, I don't mean my ship is in detection range. I mean somebody said, oh my god, look, it's Jingles, and so I am anticipating receiving more than my fair share of attention from the enemy ships. This does actually happen quite a lot. In the match that I played prior to this, somebody on my own team pointed me out to the enemy, and then somebody else on my own team suggested that the enemy aircraft carrier save all of his torpedoes for me. I was a top tier ship, I was the first one sunk, and despite that, the match ended in a draw by the way, Despite being the first one sunk, I ended up with 120 less experience than the guy on my team who finished first. The guy who pointed me out, by the way, to the enemy team. And it was a draw. I'm just saying, you know, if you find me on your team, try to keep it under your hat, because I could win the game for you if I'm not the first one sunk because the enemy team will make a beeline for me. I'm just saying. As it is, I've evolved tactics to deal with it. The St. Louis, and to a certain degree the Phoenix and the Omaha as well, the tier 4 and 5 American cruisers, are very, very good at doing this because the guns are all mounted in the sides. Basically, all I'm doing is driving around in circles. And this has two effects, and the first and most obvious effect is that my guns are constantly firing. As one side unleashes its broadside, the ship turns around and presents the guns on the other side, so I'm keeping up a constant barrage of high explosive shells. The second effect is I'm driving around in circles. It's making me much, much harder for enemy guns to hit me. This guy in the other St. Louis, who, yes, is sailing backwards because, I don't know, maybe he's new to the game, he is missing at least 80% of the shots that he's firing at me. And he obviously doesn't understand the plunging fire mechanic because he thinks he's safe behind that island, and no, he isn't. Now, I am starting to receive slightly more than my fair share of fire from the enemy. They're realising that, oh, actually, that St. Louis over there is Jingles, and so those guys at the back, they're all going to... Here it comes. Notice they're not shooting at the ships that are closer to them. I'm just lucky there were no aircraft carriers in this match. But I've evolved tactics to deal with it. I'm now, as I'm typing in chat, I'm basically bugging out, and I'm going to see if these guys are so desperate to get a shot at me that they're going to chase me down and continue sailing into the range of the guns of all the other guys on my team who are already closer to them than I am. And they are. You'd be amazed how often this works. And in fact, in this particular example, 2 enemy cruisers ended up getting obliterated by the rest of my team as they chased me across the middle of the map, just completely ignoring all of those enemy ships that I've just left behind. So I spend the next couple of minutes doing not an awful lot, sailing back the way I came to see if I can get some action on the other side of the map. So, 3 minutes later, and I've done nothing for the previous 3 minutes other than just drive from one end of the map to the other, finally something comes within range, and it's a Yubari class cruiser. That's the tier 4 Japanese premium cruiser. I'm obviously in the tier 3 American cruiser. Now, it's not a bad ship. I quite like my Yubari. My first shot, I seriously underestimated how quickly that thing was moving, and they all fell short. He's put some torpedoes in the water, but they're all miles away. I can easily avoid them. I adjust my fire, he returns fire, and he's pretty accurate, but he only has 4 guns. And I managed to hit him in return and knock out his engine. So I know he's just used his damage control ability to get his engine back up. I, of course, have now been spotted because I opened fire, and completely ignoring the battleship and the destroyer that are closer to them, the entire enemy team starts opening up on me. So, okay, fine, no problem. I'll start opening the range, once again trying to sucker these guys into shooting at me, and let the battleship and destroyer who are closer to them get some damage done. And I start putting some fire in and set fire to this Miyogi. This is it's actually quite a new hull design for the Japanese tier 4 battleship. It's got that pagoda mask up front. Makes it look like a better ship. And here comes all that enemy fire. Yeah, you just ignore the battleship that's next to me. You just ignore the destroyer that's closing in and firing off torpedoes at you. I'm sure that will work out very, very well indeed for you. The thing is, the St. Louis isn't particularly fast. I mean, it does 20 knots on average, even at full pelt. But at this kind of range, you get enough lead time when you see the enemy shooting at you that you can, as long as you keep manoeuvring, and as long as the enemy isn't very good, you can usually avoid most of the shots that they fire at you. And eventually these guys get sick and tired of shooting at and missing me, and they do start giving that battleship up in front of me some attention. But it's too late for this guy. He's been fired at by 3 different ships. He's burning. I've set him on fire. I think he's burning in 2 separate places, midships and aft. I should probably be leading my shots a little more, trying to set him on fire up front as well, but he burnt to death. We got him. Now, another enemy battleship over there. I can put a couple of shots into him. But remember that Yubari. He was around the other side of that island, up ahead of the battleship. And the Yubari is a Japanese cruiser, and Japanese cruisers, from tier 3 and up, have torpedoes. Oh, another enemy battleship. Well, nothing else to shoot at, so I'll put some high explosive into him, attempt to put him on fire as well. But I'm paying attention to... Oh, wow, he's gone. There he is. Now, what do you think he's doing? I mean, seriously. He's too close for me to get some plunging fire shots into him. But I know he's sitting there with his ass pointing out around the corner of the island, waiting for us to steam straight into his torpedoes. So I've slowed the hell down. And here comes a destroyer. And there are the torpedoes. You can see the torpedo warning indicator. Battleship ahead of me. Obviously wasn't anticipating it, but he's an American battleship. He can turn very, very quickly. He had enough of a warning that he managed to avoid all of those torpedoes. I'm going to get me this destroyer. Come on. Come on, where are you? Oh, there he is. He's not quite here yet. I've slowed right the hell down. Come on. Chew on this one, Tojo. Enemy battleship. Guns on the other side, ready to fire instantly. That's the upside of having guns that are not mounted in turrets, because it doesn't matter which way you turn, you've always got a gun pointing in the right direction. Of course, you can never fire all of your guns at the same target, but, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? Still using high explosive. I'm trying to set this guy on fire. I'm letting the battleship work him over with the armor piercing. I've got to try and keep this battleship alive. And bingo, he's gone. So the battleship did a good job there. Well played. Now, where did that Yabari go? Oh, there he is. There he is. He's coming around for another go. Our aircraft have lit him up. I think he's already fired torpedoes around the corner. Armor piercing loaded. Come on, let's get some of those Citadel penetrations. Don't forget, his torpedoes are mounted in the rear of the ship, so he cannot actually fire them at me yet. Lovely Citadel penetrations. Come on, more armor piercing. And we got you. Nice try, Panyo, but not today. Yeah, the St. Louis has still got it. It was a great ship in the closed beta test. It's a great ship in the open beta test. And one of the other new things that you can do, as well as the reporting system that you have in World of Tanks, where you can submit a certain number of complaints against players who act like douchebags in World of Warships, you can also offer compliments to people on your team who have done particularly well. So that's a really, really nice feature. So that's the World of Warships open beta test. There are some significant changes, but at its heart it's exactly the same as it was in the closed beta test. It was a fantastic game in the closed beta test. It's a fantastic game in the open beta test. I'm going to have to get my nose to the grind wheel. I really, really miss my tier 8 ships. It's going to take significantly longer to get there in the open beta than it did in the closed beta, but it's going to be an enjoyable experience. I really, really like this game and have absolutely no hesitations in wholeheartedly recommending it to each and every one of you. That's it for today, folks. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.